everybody. Welcome to the She Shack. I am so immensely excited to come to you tonight. We have been on vacation. We haven't been in, so it's 2024. So happy New Year to everyone. Listen. I don't know how you wanted to start your new year. We have been in collaboration on how we thought would be in an excellent way and spectacular. Miss Dr. Margo Lewis-Jah. Y'all, let me tell you now. I'm so excited to be here with her. She is an expert in emotional intelligence. She is a sexologist, yes, a psychotherapist, clinical director for Synergy Consultants, located here in Wilmington, Delaware. I have the absolute honor, privilege to be sitting next to you. Welcome to the She Shack.
Thank you.
I'm excited to be here. I'm so excited, everybody. I have Dr. Jah here, and guess what she's going to do for us, guys? She have an amazing insight on a fantastic topic, like dropping gems with us tonight. She's going to actually provide us with a blueprint. It's the blueprint. When she said, Yvette, I have the blueprint, I said, I have to share it with my viewers. So she has the blueprint to effective communication. And so I'm going to just turn it over to Dr. Jah and let her talk to us about what it is that she does, where she's located, and start giving us the gems for the effective communication and blueprint.
Well, thank you, beautiful souls. I am so excited to be here. This was a wonderful opportunity. We had actually started trying to plan something at the end of 2023, but I had a lot of some losses in my family and some traumatic things happening. And Miss Queen here was so gracious to wait until the new year for us to get started. But I could not be happier to be here. So as she said, I own an outpatient practice here in Wilmington, Delaware. It's called Synergy Consultants and Psychotherapy Practice. And what we do here is myself and my team, we specialize in all things mental health. As you said, I'm also a sexologist, and so that puts a little twist on things.
That does definitely put a little twist on
things. And so, as you said, you were interested in us coming together, doing a collaboration, bringing some of the topics of mental and sexual health to your audience. And so I'm here to do that. We want to have some good conversation. Some that's going to be a little spicier.
Oh my God. And I have like a bunch of questions because y'all know me. I'm always inquisitive and I have questions, and I just wanted to not bombard you with a bunch of questions, right? I think I would like to start with let's talk about communication first, right? And so we see a lot in media with relationships failing, marriages failing. We see a lot of smearing, like a lot of miscommunication happening, right? And so when we think about miscommunication or the failure to communicate properly, that actually end up in the results of relationships being affected, not just marriages. I'm thinking more like all relationships. We're talking about family relationships, dynamics of friends, the children, the parent and child, or an adult child, right? Those kinds of things impact relationships, the communication or the lack thereof. So when we think about effective communication, why don't you tell us exactly what that is? What is effective communication?
Effective communication is ultimately the art, the ability to share what you would like someone else to know, but also allow the other person to provide you with feedback regarding what they heard.
Okay.
That is the process of really what effective communication is, right? Because we need one person to be speaking and one person to be listening.
Right.
And then only when we have that take place are we then able to, one, understand, right? And then two, be able to respond appropriately. Right? So if I'm not listening and you're talking, then it's more likely for me to misinterpret what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Because I'm so busy in my emotions that I won't hear what you're saying. So if I slow it down, I can effectively hear you and then effectively be able to respond, not react to you. Right? So there's a difference. We're going to talk about that.
So so let's just for an example, right? Say that you were in the heat of a discussion. It could be not necessarily an argument, but something where you're disagreeing, right? And so maybe someone says something that triggers something else, right? And they trigger something else, and now that brings forth a different kind of emotion that take the conversation to a different space. So how do you control a conversation like that? Like, I hear you say, like, well, so much of, like, if you are so emotionally attached to something, you won't be able to hear exactly what that person is saying. But if you are, like, say for instance, you are communicating well, and then they say something that makes you feel it makes you feel some kind of way, right? And if it does, what do? Do you stop the conversation, say, hey, you made me feel some type of way, or how do you handle a situation like that?
So the recipe for that with me is what I try to teach people is if you say something and you offend me, the question is it what you said, or is this something old that I'm responding or reacting to? Right?
Okay.
And so if I don't slow the communication down, I won't be able to decipher how I'm supposed to communicate back to you.
Okay.
Right? So often people everything is instant gratification. You say something to me, I have to say it right back. Right? Like I said, oh, I don't like that shirt. Oh, well, you don't have to wear it. Whoa. You didn't give me a chance to finish. Right? So if you don't hear me say, oh, this color is flattering, but I think that because of this, it looked beautiful if you moved it to the off the shoulder, right? You didn't finish hearing, but you may have reacted that way because you may be defensive. I don't know, maybe somewhere in your life someone said something to you, hurt your feelings, and you may have, like you said, been triggered by something that was old, right? And so it may be coming up and making you be defensive right now. But the truth is, now it's my job as the person who's listening to be able to say, wow, Yvette just responded that way to me or reacted that way to me, and to say, I don't think that was about me.
And that can be.
Yeah.
That can be.
Finish telling her about why I liked the shirt or what I thought about the shirt, and she just reacted. And so sometimes we have to slow that reaction down, right? It's not always about, you said this, oh, let me be on the defense. But you're right, people have triggers and their stuff. And so it's not just the responsibility of the person who is speaking, but it's also the responsibility of the person who's listening to be able to decipher and say, well, what does this mean?
Okay.
Right? Because I would know I've never said anything to hurt your feelings or do anything. So I shouldn't then say, well, I don't know why you're acting like that. What's wrong with? I shouldn't become reactive. I know that you're responding to something that has nothing to do with me. So it would be important for me to be able to articulate that to you and be able to allow the space for us to talk about it. Right?
Well, that seemed like it would take a lot of self-discipline and self-control, right?
It does.
Because
it's art form.
Yeah, because I'm about to say, because I'm thinking to myself right now, I'm like, if you're saying something to me and I'm like, hold up, wait a minute, hold up, and me just being honest, because this is a really important topic for me. I have 4 adult children, right? And so, and oftentimes, me being mom, I feel like I have a certain lane that I'm allowed, and then, but also learning as mom, when you're in this lane, there's some bends, some flexibility, and some curves in it, right? Because when you're dealing with adult children versus younger children, you have to understand how to communicate with them because they also have triggers, right?
Absolutely.
And so, and because if you don't know this, that they have these predisposed things that they have going on, and maybe you hit the button for them. Absolutely. And so now you have some friction because you're looking like I'm mom, and I should be able to say, or I should be able to react or respond or however. Absolutely. And they're looking like, no, mom, I'm an adult, and because I'm an adult, I need you to understand that this is what I'm feeling. This is how I need you to communicate with me, because the way that you're communicating with me is not effective. And I think it's important as parents, and I'm in this lane of learning, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's important as parents that we understand that when one of our adult children express to us, hey, I don't necessarily like this, or I don't necessarily like that, is that we have to learn to respect that.
Absolutely.
And we have to honor that because they are two adults, right? We've done our job in ruining them as children, but as adults, and there could be a fine line. There could be a fine line of trying to carve out the space for an adult child and their parents, especially when you have them in their early mid-20s. Like they're really trying to figure out, right?
But you know what? When you think about it, all relationships and communication, it changes.
Okay.
So communication doesn't stay the same with everyone and at all times, right? So the way we previously would parent, provide advice to our younger children when they were in their teens and, growing up into young adulthood, it's not the same way we parent our adult children. Right? And the communication has to change. The needs are different because you did say something really important. They are evolving into adults with their own thought process, with their own ideas, their own decisions, their own life goals. And so us knowing how to honor that and be able to still effectively communicate that, but also too, this is where then as adult parents you have to take your own triggers out of it.
Okay.
Because we're so
That's
used
important.
to
That's important.
being able to tell them what to do, and they needed us at a period of time where we thought for them, we made decisions for them, but we have to honor that they are now adults and they get to do this process on their own, whether we believe it right, wrong, or whatever.
Right, we have to get in our lane.
Absolutely. and that's not a bad thing. We just need to learn how to have our communication cycle evolve with them. Right. And so that's we do that with everyone.
That's true.
Right.
I think it's just a little different when we're dealing with I think I know for me it was I was so used to being in control, right? Controlling the household, controlling
that's what
things
parents
happen,
do.
right? Being in control of things, right? And so my kids are like stair steps. So they were all teenagers together. They were all in their 20s together, that kind of thing, right? And so what I found to be most challenging as a parent, and I don't know how many of our viewers can actually relate to that, but one of the things that I found to be challenging is when they go and do the opposite, or what it looks like the opposite of what you actually taught them.
They're gonna make their own mistakes too,
right?
And so this is important, right? So they will make those mistakes, right? Because everyone has to learn the way they learn.
Okay.
But the big deal is for us as parents not to take that personal.
How do you do that? How do you not take that personal?
Externalize it. You know that you've given them all the tools that they needed in order to be successful. Okay. Right? Trust your process, but understand that the world that they live in is way different than the world we live in.
That's true. Yeah.
So the situations that they have to address are situations we never had to address. Right. And so they get an option on what they do and how they step into adulthood for themselves.
Okay.
Right. And so it's not a problem that we still want to have that communication and give that advice. But we also have to understand where we end and where they begin.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so sometimes even in the art of communicating, we don't know how to stop that. Right? Even when we talk to our friends, our spouses, our boss, sometimes we are so busy wanting to be understood that we don't take time to understand.
Wow.
Right? And there's a big difference.
That is a big difference.
Right? There's a huge difference.
Wow.
And so the art and the blueprint to communication is really, really learning how to not be reactive, but to how to be responsive. Those are two different things.
I want to ask you. I want put a pin right there. Put a pin in that. Right. And so, because that brings me to a couple of other things. When we were talking and preparing for tonight's show, you said something to me that stood out, and it said, "Get rid of the buts."
Yes.
Never say but
Yep.
when you're speaking about something, and then you say, and I said, well, but, and you said, no, 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 and immediately corrected that. And I want you to share that with our viewers. Why do you say get rid of the buts?
Because then everything that you said to me before the but now becomes disqualified in a sense, right? And so I say, oh, Yvette, I love this dress, but the first thing that happens when I say that to you is
you're waiting for something negative.
There it is, right? Because you just disqualified the first part.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like, oh, but what? Right? And so these are those little defensive words that people hear that deter effective communication.
Got it.
Right? Just like if I say, well, you, automatically a person can jump on the defensive because I'm already telling you about you, right? But if there is an issue, or I think that you look better in a different color, I don't say, oh, you always wear green. That's not the best color. I change it. And I say, I really love you in brown. You know that goes very well with your skin color. There's a difference, right? So
you haven't even mentioned the green. That's real slick.
Exactly. So you don't, right? Because the idea is that I want you to be able to hear it, right? And so how do we find these little pieces within the context of a relationship where those words become triggers for the people that we're with? Right?
I mean, this is so interesting because I'm like, you're absolutely right. It is an art. I oftentimes, as a child, you hear older elders say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for me, right? Yeah, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can do more listening and less talking, right? So, and I'm like, oh, this is starting to saturate and actually make sense. One of the things that I thought about when I thought about effective communication is relationships with friends, right? So, yeah.
Right? It
is a big one. And I think it's because they're often spoken, right? And and what fills that space is assumptions. So you assume that a person understands, or you assume that they know, because they're your friend, right? And so what end up happening is there's a boundary that's not set, right? And so then there's words that's unspoken, boundaries get crossed, and then feelings start to emotions start to get involved. It also in a space where one person can feel violated versus another. One person can feel like, oh, well, she did this or he did that, and they didn't come talk to me, or they didn't say this, but this is a expectation that you have. Could those expectations actually be unrealistic if you don't set boundaries and say up front and be direct in your communication?
Well, that all of that is a loaded question, right? But I will answer it in multiple different parts, right? Okay. Because one, when we have friends, the idea again, the art communication is an art, right? All friends won't require the same level of communication.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's just
so. How do you figure out who? Like, how do you figure that out? Like,
girl, you don't tell the one that run her mouth all the time. You don't tell her. That's what you don't do. You don't tell the one that run her mouth about everything, all your business. So
got it.
Let's start with that. Stop telling people all you have to do. Right. Okay, so now let's put that on the scale. Okay. But the truth is that everybody, again, just like your kids, I know every single one of them probably have a different personality.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so we have to figure out how we communicate with the person based on their personality, right?
Right.
So you may have one girlfriend that's extremely, outgoing. Then you may have another friend that's like, she's kind of the grounded friend, right?
Right.
And you may have one that's a little bit more of the party friend. All of their personalities are so very different.
Right.
But the skill set for effective communication with the foundation remains the same.
Okay.
You just have to be able to know which skill to do with which person.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Say you have a friend that you know she always keeps it 100 with you. She's always going to tell you
the truth, right?
No matter what.
No matter what.
You know that her intentions are never bad, right? Because she is so blunt, so upfront, so forward.
Right.
You don't have to worry about is she, doing something sneaky or
behind your back kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right.
So you don't have to question if she's saying this because she's trying to be mean to you. You take it for face value because you're like, no matter what, good or bad, she's always going to tell me the truth.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay.
But then you can have a friend, right? So this is where personality comes in.
Okay.
Where you have watched that friend maybe do some things that you may not have done.
Okay.
Right? Or move the way you would not have moved, has not yet moved that way with you.
Got it.
Right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
But if you experience that and you watch that, and that's how she typically will communicate, then you don't give her your business. Because if she's telling everybody else's business,
she's going to tell your business.
She's going to tell your business. So again, it's the same art and the same connection, the same communication skills, but you just have to know who you give it to and who you don't.
Right.
And so we, in the beginning, you said something about it being a delicate balance, right? Communication.
Yes.
And it really is. And so knowing how to distribute that to whom you're connecting with is important.
So, do you have some strategies that you can share with us as it relates to effective communication that we can actually implement? Like when the viewers say for the after hour show today, it's like, hey, I heard a lot of great information from Dr. Jah, but how do I apply these things? What exactly should I be doing? You hear a lot about listen. It's been and I know my family that's watching can
like,
hold on a minute.
Put your business out
there. I know they're gonna be like, okay, Yvette. But honestly, I know listening more and speaking less has been a challenge for me, right? I've always been talkative. My mother even said when I was young, she did well in school, always had great academics, but who won't stop talking. So obviously, having a talk show would be, aligned with me. Right. But also it can also bring some imbalances in relationships when, it makes another person feel unheard. Makes another person feel unheard when you're so passionate or emotional about what you're speaking about, and you're doing more talking and less listening, and it can also send a message to make the other person feel like what they have to say or their feelings are negated or not important, and then they're maybe clam up, and eventually that could cause damage to relationships, right? Because you're not having effective communication. How do we fix that?
So, the first part is to learn how to be assertive, right? That's when you are sharing your feelings with someone, being open, vulnerable, and being okay that this is how you feel. But how you feel doesn't mean it's true. Okay? How you feel does not mean it's true. Just because you feel that way, does not make it true.
Okay.
But, right, the idea that you're going to be able to learn how to first share it with someone is important, right? So that's the first step. Just because I said I feel like this shirt doesn't look great, that doesn't mean it's true. Maybe I'm used to a tighter fit or a looser fit, or maybe my fashion style is completely different than yours. So of course, anything that you wore that went against what I like, I would probably see it as not the most flattering. It doesn't make it true. It just makes it how I feel. Right? And that's the problem. We then take what someone says or how they feel, and we start reacting to it as if it requires us to do so. It doesn't. That's just my opinion.
But your opinion could be true. It could be true.
It could be true, but here's the thing with that. It's true for you. I don't have to accept that you don't like my shirt.
Or don't have to agree
with it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if you don't like it for you, that's fine. but I still love it for me.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
Just because it could be true, this is where we get into the sticky space, right?
Because this seed is hot right now. This seed is hot right now.
Sticky, right? But the truth is that it doesn't have to be true, and so we can agree to disagree with things, and that's okay too. But remember, I said sometimes we have to be okay to not want to be understood. I'm not going to ask you, well, why don't you like the shirt? What's wrong with it? That's just your opinion, right? We automatically want to start doing that. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about a shirt I'm allowed to wear.
Oh my goodness!
Like, I'm not going to do that. This is my shirt. I don't care what you like or don't like. But that's people will do it. Why?
Dr. Jah, you are out here pulling strings right now.
Let me put that back down here. Put it back down here. But I'm serious, right? You don't have to. And so we often get caught into this idea and this notion that when someone says something to us, we right away have to defend our position, change our position,
right,
argue our position. We don't have to do that.
Okay, so when you say defend, like that's like this defensive thing. So it's could it be attached to something?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay.
That could be way back from somebody's childhood where they were bullied, right? That could be so deep, and then that's just their reactionary response in their life, right? But that doesn't have to have anything to do with me. That's why I said it's fine. You don't like the shirt. I'm not going to worry about that. You could have, it could have been your religious upbringing. And you were buttoned up to the top here and down here. And so anything that somebody wears that has a little off the shoulder, a little cleavage, you may respond.
Now you clenching your brows.
Exactly.
Yes.
But that would be for you, though.
Right.
And that's okay. That's your background. That's what you would have for you. But it doesn't have to be what I have for me. And I can be okay with that. I don't have to defend it. I don't have to argue with it. I don't have to challenge it. That's okay.
So let's talk. We're gonna keep on with assertiveness, right?
Yeah.
But I want to attach a little something to it so that we can differentiate between being assertive and actually being aggressive in the way that we're communicating, right? Because I think that those two things can get twisted up. Where some would say, I'm standing up for myself, but it can come off as being really aggressive, and aggressiveness can be offensive.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about maybe in the dynamics of now, we're going to move into a dynamics like a marriage.
Let me get me a sip.
Get you a sip.
You trying to get me in trouble out here telling these people stuff.
No. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it.
Now, let me say, disclaimer, whatever I say does not apply to your personal marital relationship. If you would like assistance with that, you may call my office and I can get you. Don't say Dr. Jah said this and start putting people out your house. Not tonight.
It's raining outside.
Exactly.
It's terrible. It's terrible weather. Exactly. We would not want you to put your spouse, your significant other, your boyfriend out based on what you heard on the chat.
Girlfriend, I don't care what you got. Do not say I said this meant you. That's all I'm saying. You start talking about people's relationship. They're like, oh, she told me. Yeah. She told me.
Yeah. Because I heard Dr. Jah say on the She Shack that you wasn't good. You gotta go.
You said that to me? Get out of here. I didn't say it to you personally. I'm just talking in general.
So generally speaking. So we're gonna say generally speaking.
Absolutely.
And you have I'm gonna give you different scenarios in relationships, right? So we'll go with one that's maybe a long-term marriage.
Okay.
We'll go with one within a 5-year time frame, and we'll go with one that's moving into marriage. Right? Okay, and so let's start with the one that's moving in.
Okay.
The one that's, we're dating and we're things are moving into looking like we're gonna be married, right? Okay. So you have a couple that's has had some arguments, some disagreements. Some worse than others, right? and one partner say something that is offensive or hurtful to the other, right? After a couple of days pass by, now we done cooled off, but and so we're gonna move past this argument, but not address the things that were said that were hurtful.
Well, then you didn't really move past it. Right?
So what did you do?
You skipped over it. That's different. We skipped over it because to move forward and move past something, you should have resolved it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because what's going to happen is it's going to come back again. Now, if you truly move past something, it won't come back again.
Okay.
Because you would have learned from it.
Okay.
You would have taken what the person said, and you should not be repeating it again. Right?
So that won't come up. That won't come up in a relationship.
It should not come up again. It should not come up again. So if I said to you, I don't like you calling me out of my name, and then I explain to you that's something I won't tolerate within the context of our relationship, and you call me out of my name again, then we probably won't have a relationship. Because I'm
generally speaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's for each person to measure. Because each person has to measure what their boundaries are, where their rules are, and what they will and won't accept from someone. But because you said we're coming into this thing, if you accept it now, it will be the same moving forward. They can't change it. So don't move into something if you don't see the change from it.
Got it.
I get people in therapy all the time and they're like, oh yeah, well this person, he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that or she doesn't do this. And I said, well, tell me about what they did before you got married. Oh, they didn't work. They just played the video game. And you chose to marry them?
And expected something different. Wow.
Because they didn't fix it. Right? They didn't fix it. And so it's gonna come back. Right? And so the choice is you have to set your boundaries. So remember we talked about assertive communication, that's you being able to advocate for yourself.
Right.
And so if you don't set that in the beginning and you allow it to keep happening and you're moving into a new relationship, you are now setting the standard for what you will allow.
Period.
Period. Because if I told you not to call me out of my name and you do it again, clearly there is an issue that you're not understanding how I'm going to demand you to respect me. And so for me only, I have to then say, where is my value in this, right? And so in terms of communication, I will not allow someone to speak to me this way. And so then I got to make a decision. I can't, here's what the issue is though. This is where the communication gets caught up.
Oh, we're still general?
We're still general.
Okay.
Then I expect you to be okay with what I've asked you for. But the truth is, if you're not okay, you should tell me you're not capable of doing that.
That part.
Exactly.
That part.
Exactly.
That part right
because
there.
it does get hard for people.
Being honest.
Absolutely. And if you're not ready to say that's the change you're able to make or that's what you can give to someone, be honest. I'm not able, I don't know how to address a conversation without cursing or calling someone out their name. And so right now, I think I need a little bit more time before we cross over into that next stage.
Instead of expecting someone to deal with your incapability to communicate with them effectively, right? So now you're projecting your inability to do something or the unwillingness to learn to do it and say, hey, I need you to accept that this is who I am. I cuss, and I'm going to be cussing you, and I'm going to be calling you out of your name, or I'm going to be saying, using vulgar words that that you don't like, right? So let's flip that. Say, for instance, we're in a relationship now in the 5 years, right? And that you're dealing with similar what we talked about moving into it, but you've accepted the excuse. You've spoke about it. You've said, I don't like when you do this, right? And then you see for a while it doesn't happen, and then it comes back up. And then you see for a while again, it doesn't happen, but it comes back up. Now you find yourself not in a 3-year relationship with a person, but maybe a 7-year relationship with the same person dealing with the same behaviors. Now, my question is this. Is it still the other person's fault?
No. Now it's your fault. Why? Because you told them what your boundary was. When they pushed it over and you allowed them to come over that side and pushed it down, now you've allowed this to take place.
Y'all heard it right here. Listen, Dr. Jah, you didn't hear this. Generally speaking, it's your fault, right? And so if you allow someone to continuously do something to you that you know that you're not comfortable with, that you know that you don't like, but then you keep blaming them for it, it's time for a little self-reflection. It's time to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and think about why you are allowing yourself to accept things that devalue you, right? And we're going to talk about that moving into our other segments. But we have, when I tell y'all, we have some loaded, spectacular, and amazing segments coming up with Dr. Jah. She's allowed me in the office to pick her brain, guys. And so everything I can possibly think of, I'm going to bring into Dr. Jah. And so when we start talking about, because we have a segment coming up, and I wanted to kind of ease into it a little bit, but not doing too much, right? I don't want to do, and you have to tell me what I'm doing, because Queen can do too much. So let's talk about when we was talking about effective communication within marriage, right? And one of the things a lot of marriages find challenging in when they're communicating is talking about what they like when it comes to intimacy and sex.
Oh, now she want to cook with fish grease.
I'm with grease.
I'm not gonna do that tonight. That's what you want to do.
Listen, communication goes. We have to communicate. Yes, it goes everywhere, right? And so, your partner, your partner, your intimate partner will not know unless you communicate. Right. Unless you say, "Oh, well, you know, I didn't like that," or "I do like this," or whatever. But you have to communicate with them to tell them what it is that you like and what you dislike. But it can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Now, there you go with that butt. There you go with that butt. No, you do have to tell them. Don't do the butt part. Okay?
No buts. I'm sorry. I'm learning. Like, I'm going to break it up.
Yes.
However, it can be. However, the conversation itself can be uncomfortable at times.
Absolutely. But communication, period, can be uncomfortable, right? Okay. So sticking with this blueprint about communication, it's not always going to be comfortable, right? Okay. So, you know, in Out in the Open with Dr. Jah, I tell people this is the art of getting comfortable with uncomfortable conversation. And so effective communication is going to have some uncomfortable pieces that you have to share with someone, right? And so whether it's about just basic relationship communication and dynamics, household, domestic things, or whether it's about intimacy and the state of your marriage, the ability to be able to communicate, right, is going to be the key to fixing everything, right? And so we talked a little bit about assertive communication, and that means you learning how to advocate and talk about what you want and what you need and express your feelings.
Right.
And then we talked a little, I'm going to circle back to the aggressive piece, right?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. But in an intimate relationship, the foundation stays the exact same, right? So let me give you a couple of blueprint topics that I really want you all to pay attention to. So, you know, timing. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything.
Right?
Timing
is
everything,
yes, right, with communication.
Yes, with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably not a good idea for me to tell you I don't like a blouse that you're wearing right before you go out on stage to talk to 150 people who came to hear you in an intimate setting. That was bad timing. Bad timing. But we do relationships and marriages like this.
Really?
I'm going to wait until you walk out the door to get ready to go to work to tell you I didn't appreciate what you said to me last night. Oh, there you go. So I apologize if your mate is on this screen and she has said something to you when you were leaving for work. She will learn how to apologize for that. All right? Yes. So that's bad timing, though. Thank you. See, look at you growing. I love that. That is perfect. That is just what I'm looking for, right? But when you think about it, that's bad timing.
That is.
You're setting someone. It's almost setting someone off. Right? That in itself is a trigger. They have to go out to work, they have to drive, and you're going to wait until you have 30 seconds to say
what you want to say that you've been wanting to say all day.
All night.
All day yesterday.
And then today you're going to wait to say it. You're like, did we about that last Friday? And here it comes.
First
today.
of all, let me just tell y'all, Dr. Jah does not know my biography, but it seems as if she right here telling my business, okay?
I'm not that friend. I'm not that friend. Don't listen to her. I don't tell business.
She telling my business because I'm over here and my seat is flaming, okay? It is, but this has been a spectacular experience and learning one as well, because it is important for us to talk about these behaviors, right? And so as you said that, when you said timing is everything, and you don't want to wait until your partner is leaving out the door for you to say, you pissed me off, or, I didn't like when you said this. And timing is also everything when you want to talk to your partner about what you like or what you don't like when it comes to intimacy, right? Absolutely. So it's important not to wait until you in the do to say, you know what? I don't like this.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. That's going to send a horrible message. Absolutely. And it also could adversely affect the way your partner engages with you in the future. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And so if we're not even talking about sexual engagement at this point, we're still talking about just
period.
Intimacy. Intimacy, right?
Yeah.
So just intimacy. And then, so we're going to talk about first timing, right? Mm-hmm. That's a major issue. And then the second part is we are so quick to complain about something. We're so quick to complain about something. I'm talking to somebody out there. I'm not even talking to her, right? That sometimes we forget to bring up or to share the positive things with people. With our partner, right? That's part of communication. If we spent time communicating about the positive things, when we had to start communicating about the negative things, the impact might look a little bit different.
I receive that in the name of Jesus.
Amen. The church said amen.
Amen. If you can't say amen, you say ouch.
Absolutely.
And 2024 is all about upgrading. And Dr. Jah, let me just say, just you gracing the She Shack with your presence is an upgrade already. Okay, but to also hold me accountable, because I love this about her. Because she, let me tell you one thing, she don't cut no corners now. All her corners is clean. And so with that being said, to hold me accountable and correct me with love, because it's all about growth.
Absolutely.
And it's all about upgrading and moving to the next level. And that's also important in relationships, right?
Absolutely.
And so in order for us to grow, in order for us to upgrade, in order for us to go to the next level, we have to sometimes get comfortable with being uncomfortable, having uncomfortable relationships, uncomfortable conversations. And Dr. Jah, let's talk about, because you have a platform specifically for that is targeted for uncomfortable conversations. And tell us about that.
So Out in the Open with Dr. Jah is a platform that I started. And even though I had to take a small break from recording and being able to have people come in and to be able to host people, the message still continues in the work that I do. Okay. So everywhere that I go, the idea is that if we don't break silence and we don't learn how to communicate, then how do you grow? Right? You don't. So sometimes, you have to push yourself to a new level, to a new place, right? And so even when you said, it's so hard to control those triggers, but if you don't, then you just stay stagnated and right there doing the same thing you did last year
and the year before
that. Absolutely.
And the year before.
Absolutely.
And experiencing some of the same events over and over and over. And then we find ourselves blaming God, like, okay, God, I did this last year. I made some changes, but why am I dealing with it again this year? And then, okay, God, I made some changes, and but I'm still dealing with it next year. So the point is, you're not really dealing with it.
Absolutely.
Like you're brushing over it, skipping past it, or what they call it, putting a cover over it, pushing it in the corner, compartmentalizing it, and that's something else we'll talk about. Compartmentalizing these different emotions that you don't don't really know how to effectively communicate with your partner, your friends, your family members, your children. And then therefore, when something happens and this conversation makes you uncomfortable, we don't know how to properly handle it.
Correct.
I'm speaking from experience now. I'm just saying, you know, and if you're gonna be honest, gonna tell us. And if we're gonna grow, we only can grow in excellence, honor, humility, right? And so, and if we don't prepare ourselves now to communicate back now, then we're failing ourselves, we're failing our families, we're failing our children, we're failing the generation that's going to come behind us because we're not teaching them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So,
and more importantly than us not teaching them, we're not modeling this.
Right.
You have to be able to model it. It's not just good enough to say it to people, but you have to demonstrate it to the generation behind us, right?
So, Dr. Jah, I just wanted to pinch your brain a little bit more because you are also working on a book. And so, because you're working on that, you have some information that we can kind of keep in our pocket that helps us navigate through the different challenges, like, you know, little tidbits that we can kind of remember that you give to us, even when we're talking about communication, like you said to us, listen. You know, one of the things you said was to listen. The second thing that you said to us was to be assertive. And you also said that you was going to spin a block on us and tell us about the difference between being assertive and being aggressive in our communication. But it's also important, I believe, to value the person enough so that you can stop. And that you can, even if what they're saying doesn't align with what you feel, because she told us tonight that our feelings is not always true. And then, but also, even if it doesn't align with what you would have done, because that's a challenge for me. It's like, why did you do it that way? You know, I don't understand it. All you had to do was do it like this, and that would have changed, or it would have came out this way. How do we navigate those things?
So I do want to go back to the difference between the assertive and the aggressive communication.
Okay.
Right. So aggressive communication is often always going to lead to someone being defensive.
Okay.
It allows a person to start doing things like blaming. Right? Try and have a conversation where you don't blame someone, or the first thing out your mouth is, "Well, if you would have done this, right?" So let's not do the blaming part, right? Stop, you are burning. I see the smoke coming out now. It's sizzling over there.
Baby,
the blaming. So the blaming, that is going to set a relationship on fire. That blaming back and forth thing is absolutely horrible, right? And then another thing that I want to say that is important in terms of these communications is to learn to be emotionally flexible, right?
What does that mean, to be emotionally flexible?
It means not every conversation has to go the same way, right? Sometimes people are like, well, why can't we just sit and talk? Why can't we just sit and talk? Sometimes the timing is wrong, and right now the person is not able to hear you. It's not good to sit and talk. So be emotionally flexible, and I say, okay, Yvette, excuse me, it's not a good time for us to sit and talk right now. Maybe we can come back to this later on this afternoon after you had a little bit of time to relax and calm down, right? So we can process what we need to discuss effectively, right? And so that's a big deal, right? And so doing that is really important. And so also stay on one topic. How many times have people went from one topic to a second topic to a third topic to a fourth topic in the midst of a conversation, right? And so that is a hard thing to do, for people to stay on one topic. How often have you argued with someone and you said, well, this is because, no, last week you did this, and remember 6 weeks ago you did this and you did this. That's not going to help. That's not going to help.
So the argument or the disagreement needs to be stay focused on what we're disagreeing about, and it shouldn't be
one
like
topic. Don't start bringing all that other stuff we argue about. Don't do it. But that's the indicator. Remember when I said it's not fixed?
It's not fixed.
Jump right over top of it. It's going to come back. So if I'm talking to you about something you did, well, remember 6 years ago when we were doing the cruise and you borrowed
Oh,
$20.
you still feel some type of way about that 6 years ago.
Exactly. But this happens. So these are the things, right, that deter someone from having effective communication, whether it's a relationship, an intimate relationship, a friendship, a relationship with your children, your boss. These are issues, right? So stay off of the lane and running through the multiple topics at one time. That is a really, really big deal. And then also use I statements.
Okay.
I said that before. Don't start talking about you need to do this, you need to do that. No.
Remove you.
Absolutely.
And replace you with I.
Correct.
Okay.
So remember when I said I really like you in the color green, as opposed to you don't need to wear the color brown. That is not. It's a different. It's a complete difference, right? And so I'm talking about from my perspective, but that doesn't mean right. It just means I want to share this thought with you, but automatically I keep you from being on the defensive, right? And so somebody.
I'm going to definitely apply eyes and remove my yous and remove my and that's not a generally, that is intentionally to be a better communicator.
Correct.
Dr. Jah, so you have given us tips, tools to apply to be effective and better communicators. You've explained to us to be assertive, but not to be aggressive, right? And I don't know if the viewers are clear, but I believe that I need a little bit more about the difference. Like, I need to understand when am I being assertive versus when I'm being aggressive. Because I think, and I don't know if this is maybe like a seed that's personally been planted for me, that I've heard many people say to me, you're aggressive, right? And then I'm like, me? And I always see myself as direct. I don't know.
Are you being aggressive?
I know I'm direct. I know that, but I think where maybe the conflict is more or less like, it might be a defense mechanism. Like, you know what? Like cutting off. I'm not even going to deal with this because this is not aligning up over here. But that also cuts other people off. It's cutting off they're making them feel like how they feel is not valid. How do you handle that? Like, how do you handle being direct but not being aggressive, or being assertive and not being aggressive? Because you don't want people to think that you don't care about how they feel.
Right. And so sometimes, I'm glad you said that. So sometimes it's this idea of nonverbal communication too. So pay attention to what you're doing, right? Okay. So are you speaking loudly and over top of someone, right? That can come off and appear to be very aggressive.
Okay.
Are you using a harsh tone? You can be direct, but to be direct, you don't have to use a harsh tone.
Got it.
Are you doing a lot of body movement? That body movement, body language says a lot to someone, right? And so they could be pulling these things together to identify you being aggressive. But also the difference is when someone says you're being aggressive, that's a hint that they are feeling attacked, right?
Okay.
Right? And so pay attention to what they're saying to you.
Okay.
And then this leads me into another tip. Use facts, not feelings. Absolutely. Okay. So if I said to you, I feel like you're being aggressive, ask, communicate, assertive communication. Say, please share with me how you feel or why, what the facts are about me being aggressive towards you.
Time out. Wait a minute. First of all, that's assertive. That example that you utilize is an assertive way to speak. And explain to me how that's assertive.
Right.
That just sounds like you're being polite.
But no, because I'm stating what my issue is, but I'm not taking anything. So what I want from you is for you to tell me.
Oh, got it.
Why?
Okay, I got it.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Right? Tell me why you feel like I'm being aggressive to you.
Yes.
Or I was asking you, why tell me what you think I'm saying that's aggressive towards you.
Oh, so you can be informed. So you can be informed.
So that they can give you the facts, because sometimes, as we started off saying, it's a misinterpretation, and that could be based on what their experience was. I'll give you a perfect example if I can use you, right?
Okay, use me.
You speak with a lot of authority in your voice.
Okay.
And it carries.
Okay.
And she's not a quiet mouse, right?
Okay.
That is a powerful tool to be able to be used by someone. But if you're in a room with a group of people who are very weak or mild, right? That could look like you were attempting to dominate, right?
Oh my gosh, Dr. Jah, it happens to me all the time.
Exactly. But I'm not telling you to stifle you, because that's just who you are. That's your personality.
Yes.
Right? But you also don't want other people to misread it. Now, it's not your responsibility for what they read and don't read.
But we have to, there has to be a way to communicate, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So you just read the room, right, for what's happening.
Okay.
But you don't have to, but someone may say, oh my God, did you see the one? She was so aggressive and assertive. No.
Yes.
But that doesn't make it true. It just means it's very different than how they are. But if you really wanted to approach me and ask me, and I say, oh, I feel like you're so aggressive, you can ask, and you can ask the person, well, can you give me facts as to why you think I'm aggressive?
Mm-hmm.
The facts cannot be argued.
Okay.
Let me tell you. So then I would have to give you evidence, because facts are evidence.
Evidence. Okay.
Just because you walked in and you came in and you said, and I said, oh, well, when you walked in, you said hi to everybody in a very bubbly way. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't make you aggressive.
That just means that I'm full of joy.
Or it means that I have a poor interpretation. And so pay attention, right?
Poor interpretation. Clear me up. Get that right.
Okay, so what if I was raised in a household where, let's just say a parent was a raging drunk or alcoholic, and every time they came home, they were loud
and bubbly,
or just loud and commanded everybody in the household to follow them, do what they said, listen to them, right? But that could be my old stuff. And so now when a loud person comes into a room bubbly, it makes me feel uneasy. Right? So it doesn't have to be true, but if you have a conversation with me, then we're able to talk about and process, well, why do you feel threatened by me in that way? Why did you see that as aggressive? But if you don't get the facts from someone to help understand, because it's not just because you're trying to prove that you're not aggressive, right? It said to seek to understand, not to really worry about being understood. But when we learn that,
say that one more time. Seek to understand and not to be
worried about being understood at the moment, right?
Okay.
And so if you do that, then what you might realize is, oh, I didn't know that about my friend. I didn't know her father was a raging drunk. So when I come in, and she's always like, hey, what? It's not me. It's the connection, right?
Got it. Yes.
And so maybe you'll also make the person who's in your relationship or who you're in relationship with, connecting to, understand more about that as well, right? And so they too will understand some things, right? Because then you could say, well, you know why I'm like this? I was the captain of my cheerleading team, the captain of my drill team, all through college, all through high school. I was valedictorian. I was on every social group. Oh, well, that explains that she's not aggressive. She is confident.
And that's what I was just getting ready to say. Like, I'm so happy that we navigated into this space. Because one thing I have experienced and I had to take accountability for, and one of the things I had to take accountability for was speaking loudly, right? And so speaking loudly, I actually, because I'm hard of hearing. Right? And so because I'm hard of hearing, I speak loud enough so that I can hear myself.
I have a couple of those individuals in my family too.
Right, but here's the thing. The thing with that is understanding that although I know why I speak louder, the other people perceive that you're just being loud, right?
But if they did what I just told you to do, is to inquire about the facts, they would know, right?
They would know it.
So if they took a moment to be like, "Hey, girl, wait a minute, I can't hear. Is it too loud?
Tell me, that's
me.
I'm
so sorry. Tell me. I didn't know I was that loud. I can't hear." Type of thing.
I love it.
Then they would be like, "Oh, that she can't hear.
She's not here.
I got you. He said his company's happening." Then they would know.
Then he would know.
Absolutely.
That's effective communication.
There
oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it.
That's it right there.
I receive that. Not only receive that, but be held accountable to be an effective communicator, to be a better listener. Because I'm understanding now that to be a effective communicator, you have to be an excellent listener. And so I'm going to work on listening more and using eyes instead of yous. I'm going to replace my buts because it negates and it sends off a negative message. And so I know right now the people that are watching, especially those that know me, say, "Oh, baby, we gonna hold her accountable for all of that." And I want you to do that because this is all about upgrading and growing and learning in this season in 2024. And we are being guided by the best. When I tell you the absolute best, Dr. Jah is by far the best in her field. Okay. I did my research. Y'all know I'm a little snoopy, right? And so I know that she is amazing and that you stand on excellence, right? And because of that, we can trust you with navigating us through effective communication and the other parts of this series that's coming because it's flaming. It's flaming. And I cannot wait for us to unpack each part of it and watch our viewers. I want you to see that.
Absolutely.
I want
to see us all grow.
I want to see me grow a little bit. So for you just blessing us with your presence and your knowledge here on the She Shack, we are eternally thankful and grateful. I mean, the viewers been popping in and popping out, but what I noticed that you captivated the audience. You absolutely, it's no more like all these questions that y'all be throwing up on the screen. Now it's actually captivating the audience. Like what we're talking about is being received in a way that can be helpful and applied. She said in our episodes that we are not going to only provide insight into these uncomfortable conversations and making them comfortable, but we also going to provide solutions. And would anybody say tonight that Dr. Jah provided us with insight and solutions and holding us accountable? Because I tell you, in our 52 minutes of being on the show, I have learned so much about effective communication, and I can look back and say, hey, there are some areas where I need improvement. This is not about judgment. This is not about pointing fingers. And just like Dr. Jah said, don't go picking an argument with your significant other. Say, I just watched She Shack. And She Shack just told me, I just saw there's an expert that was on the show and told me because you keep cussing and calling me out of my name and I don't like it, that we need to break up. Maybe you need to come and see Dr. Jah. Have some therapy. Therapy, I'm telling you, it's good for the spirit. It's good for the soul. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your emotional wellness. And I thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all next week. We're going to do the same thing next week. We're going to give some shout outs. I see a few people that have popped in. I see Curtis that popped in and watched us. Curtis, I hope that we've done great tonight. And, we're waiting for your feedback because we know you're watching us. And everyone that has tuned in tonight, we want to hear from you. If you have questions or you want to continue this conversation after the live, you can go to Conversations with A Queen on Facebook. We have a group in the chat. It's right there where we can talk off the live about what happened on the show tonight. And also, if in fact you had some questions that you were not able to ask us tonight, drop those in the chat. What we're going to do is bring them onto the show on next week, pose these questions to Dr. Jah, and she will give us insight and solutions. Remember, she's not advising you to do this or do that emphatically, but she can give you insight and solutions on how to navigate through difficult situations and even how to get into addressing uncomfortable conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
And also, listen, don't forget to follow Dr. Jah. She's on Instagram.
Yeah.
She's on YouTube.
Yep.
And she's on Facebook,
Yep.
right? Dr. Jah, Dr. Lewis-Jah.
Yep.
On all of those channels. You can find her there. Do not hesitate. She has some amazing things that she posting up there. I love you so much.
And don't be DMing me about no crazy stuff either, because people jump in there and start asking all kinds of sexual personal questions. No, you have to make an appointment for that. But if you do have something that you'd like to share, please, please, please do send a message over. Whether you send it to the She Shack or whether you send it to me, because I really would like to be able to, answer or at least address the audience's the questions that they may have, or if something they didn't feel like something was that we had enough time to expand on everything, because we can't get to everything. And so we're trying to give you some highlights of what's the most important that we want you to
Yes.
take away,
Yes.
right? And so on all of the shows that we will be, doing in this series, that's my goal, and I know that is the Queen's goal, right? To be able to provide you with some high level tools, information that you can take away and apply for yourself, or even just begin to contemplate about, right?
Yes.
So we're not saying that this hour segment will be able to make you turn your entire life over and around, but we're saying even if we're able to plant a little bit of a seed for you to understand and find some personal growth or desire some personal growth, then we have done our job.
We've done our
So,
job.
yeah.
Dr. Jah, you've done it tonight.
Thank you.
She's done an amazing job. I'm talking about she hot seated me most of the show, but held me accountable, but also made me think about how I can be a better communicator. So, job well done, Dr. Jah. Thank you so much. It's been a great show.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll see you all next week. Remember, guys, is nothing impossible with God.
I know that's
Good
right.
night.
Amen.
Amen.
Good night. Bye.
Well, that's what she's doing. It's on the bottom. What did you do? Dr. Jah, it was great.